Hi, I'm Dave Fitzpatrick, one of the co-founders of RentLizard.com. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video that'll talk about the importance of renter's insurance. If you know anybody else that's currently in the rental market, feel free to forward a link to this video over to them. It's been my experience that a number of renters just don't realize how important renter's insurance really is. Having been in the business now, in the rental market business, for about 15 years as a property manager, I hear usually one of two things from tenants when it comes to renter's insurance. One, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. Or the second complaint I'll hear is, it'll never happen to me. There's no need for renter's insurance, I'll never have a need for it. I can honestly tell you, based on my experience, as a property manager and what I've seen, those two statements can't be further from the truth. In my opinion, renter's insurance is probably one of the best and most important insurances that you can have. Let me give you a couple stories that have occurred in my situation again over the past 15 years. In that amount of time, I've had 4 different single-family houses catch fire. 3 of those involved tenants that did not have renter's insurance. 1 did have renter's insurance, and she had most of her belongings covered under her insurance policy, and she was made good. The other 3 lost everything. All 3 cases, they lost every single thing they had. In all 3 cases, the property was a total loss. Now you might say, well, that's a fire. What's the likelihood that something like that would happen to me? Well, I had one of those cases. A little boy had sparklers, playing with the sparklers in the bunk bed. It's a 2-story house. The bed catches fire. He's afraid to go down and tell Mom because Mom's going to be upset. Then once the fire gets to a point where it's going pretty good, he realizes, I better go tell Mom. Only by the time he got down to tell Mom, the whole house got engulfed in flames, and everything's gone. Luckily, in all my instances, fortunately there was no loss of life or no injury, but it's not a pleasant thing as a property manager to go through and see what the renters had to go through when they lost everything and had no renter's insurance to cover any of their loss. Now let's, using the same example as a fire. What if you live in an apartment building? What if you have a neighbor that leaves a pan on the stove and runs down to run an errand forgetting that the stove is on? House or the apartment catches fire. Fire may not engulf your particular unit, but look at smoke damage. Smoke damage, it's amazing how much damage that can do. I mean, you get a lot of thick smoke in an apartment building. A lot of your belongings are gone. Had you had renter's insurance, again, a lot of that loss could have been covered. No renter's insurance, not covered. Now let me talk a little bit about homeowner's insurance, which is generally the policy type that a landlord will have over a dwelling, versus renter's insurance and what things renter's insurance covers. Homeowner's insurance will generally cover the structure that you live in itself, and that's the landlord side of the equation, and most all property managers and landlords will have some sort of home ownership policy in place to cover things like a fire, wind damage, lightning strikes a building, tornado, anything like that. Using this example again, let's say you have a bad storm. The roof gets ripped off, it pours into your house, your apartment, whatever it is, your condo that you're renting, and your stuff gets damaged. Okay, that's where renter's insurance comes into play. Renter's insurance covers your personal belongings and effects, anything essentially that's yours. There basically are 3 areas that are covered under renter's insurance. You've got your any kind of damage that might be done to any of your belongings, again using an example of some sort of a storm or something and your stuff gets ruined. Crime, let's say you have a break-in and you go to work, you come home, somebody's broken into your place, they've stolen half of your belongings. Your renter's insurance can kick in and cover those things that are lost. The other area that's covered is liability. Let's say you have a party and you have a dog, for example. Your dog gets upset at somebody at your party, bites one of your guests in the leg, They go home and they get on the phone with their attorney and they sue you. Well, that's, again, renter's insurance comes into play there. So Very important insurance. I can't emphasize enough. Again, this is coming from a property manager that has seen various things throughout 15 years take place that affect renters. And again, I can't emphasize enough how important renters insurance is. Now, let me get back to the this idea that renters insurance is too expensive, I can't afford it. In my opinion, it ought to be looked at as important as the utilities that you turn on when you move into your rental. Obviously you move in someplace, generally you'll turn on the electric, gas, maybe get the water in your name. Right along in there ought to be renter's insurance. If you look at the cost of renter's insurance, on average it'll run for an annual policy generally anywhere between $180 and $350. Might be a little lower in some cases, it might be a little higher. That pricing is dependent on a couple of different factors. Those would include the location that you live in. You know, if you happen to live in an area that has high crime rates, for example, or a high incidence of turning in claims to your insurance, generally that will result in your policy being a bit higher than, say, another geographic location that doesn't have those higher incidents. Another one might be your deductible. You know, if you want to have say a $500 deductible versus a $1,000 deductible, that $500 deductible will likely be not quite as, or I'm sorry, will be more expensive than, say, a $1,000 deductible, where you're basically, in the case of a $1,000 deductible, you're picking up the cost up to $1,000 in loss. Your insurance company picks up from there. One other area that that has an effect on your pricing is your coverage needs. You know, what all do you want to have covered in the way of your belongings, and for how much. So those are the things that affect your pricing. Now, going back and looking at that, if you're paying $180, or you know, say somewhere between $180 and $350 annually for renter's insurance, and you get broken into one time, you've just paid for that policy, okay? Or likely have, again, depending on how much is stolen. Same thing if you have some accident that occurs where maybe it's a fire, maybe you have some sort of storm, or your building's flooded out that you live in. All those things, believe it or not, the likelihood of an occurrence happening is a lot higher than you tend to think it is. So again, if you can pay for cable, you can pay for your cell phone, and you can pay for your internet, look right in it. Those things are important to you. Renter's insurance ought to be right in there amongst them. Now, where do you go get pricing in comparison for your renter's insurance? First place to start would be whoever you have your car insurance through, or your auto insurance agent would be a good one to start with to see what kind of a quote you can get. Rentlizard.com, our site, we've formed a partnership here, and we'll be able to give you the opportunity to go through our site and get some quotes at a website called netquote.com. That's netquote.com. They offer you the ability to go ahead and input your parameters, you know, where you live, how much insurance you're looking to obtain, a little bit about the structure that you're going to live in, and then your information gets farmed out to a number of insurance companies who will then provide you various quotes. So there are other tools and resources like that on the internet. Highly recommend you look into them and go get some quotes on renter's insurance. But a good place to start generally is the agent that you currently have in place now. Hope you find that this video has helped you out to some extent. And now, as soon as you quit watching this, get on the phone. If you don't already have renter's insurance, get on the phone, get on the internet, call your agent, do a search, try and obtain some renter's insurance. You'll thank me some point down the road, I guarantee you. Take care.